right, guys, welcome to Audio Workstations and Week 3's live stream session. We're going to go ahead and get started this evening. I appreciate you guys all taking time out of your busy schedules to be able to make it for this evening. And we've got a lot of fun things in store for our project. Just a quick refresher on where we've gotten these files from. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but for those of you that have not gotten started with this yet, please get started with this immediately. This is your month-long project that we will be whittling away at as we go through this process here. So each of the weeks we've been working on the final project, showing you where to get your materials from, and then we're giving you a tutorial basically how you should go about remixing this project. Generally, a remix is going to be somewhat of a different version that you haven't heard on the radio, and we're giving you guys the ability to do whatever you want with these files. So let me show you where we actually got these files from. If we take a look at Safari, and I think I've already got this loaded. Let's take a look here. We're getting these from this website called Indaba Music. And this is a free website that gives you remix opportunities. In other words, they hold contests where they give you prize money and sometimes giveaways for things like gear and swag and things like that. But this is where you're getting your files from. So create a free account. It gives you basically the stems to artists that are currently out. The song that you guys heard playing at the intro, we've been working on since week 1. And I just basically went through the different opportunities and picked out a song. So let me show you how to do that. Now, once you've created your free account, the only thing you'll really need to do is go over to the Opportunities tab. So Opportunities is right up the top here, and this will show you all the different files that are currently available. So we've got a couple different files here. The first artist that was up here was The Knox, and the song is called Modern Hearts. I believe I downloaded these files last week, but if you want to take a look at this, you click on the remix opportunity. And yeah, you can see I have submit your track, which means I've already downloaded the files, so I can show you the files here in a moment. But you want to go ahead and audition the song and listen to it first. We'll go ahead and hit the... All right, it's currently not playing out of my audio interface. Let's take a look at why it's not playing out. I'm going to go ahead. I've put AMS inside of my dock here. I'll show you what that is actually. You guys may be already familiar with AMS. It stands for Audio MIDI Setup. And it can be found in your Utilities folder. Let's do a couple things here first though. Let's go ahead and get my Keycaster working. So I'm going to go to my Applications folder. And there's Keycaster. Let's go ahead and launch this. That way you guys can see any of the key commands that I'm doing. We'll hide this for right now. Just confirm that it's working. Cool. You can now see my keystrokes. So if you're looking for your Utilities folder, you can actually find it inside of your Applications folder. You can see here I've got Utilities. Inside your Utilities folder is AMS, Audio MIDI Setup. I've gone ahead and just dragged this to my dock so it's always there and available for me. And that way if I have any kind of weird interface issue, I just simply click on Audio MIDI Setup, which is basically part of the Mac's operating system. And you can see right now it's not playing out of my current audio interface, so I'll say use this device for output. And that way anything that I listen to, like iTunes or anything coming off the internet, like the website we're about to visit, everything will actually play out of my audio interface, and then we'll be able to hear it through my monitors. Okay, cool. So going back to the artist, we play. Cool, really hot sounding dance track. Probably a lot of possibilities you could do with that particular song. Let's cruise back up to Opportunities and see if there's anything new. I haven't visited here in a while. So we just listened to The Knox. This one's a good one. This one, this artist actually only gave you the vocals to her track. You can go ahead and listen to the track if you want to. We'll get a quick listen.
Think the clouds are clogging up my brain like the weather drains, same as the tears on my face. And I'm stuck up in the storm. I guess they'll be alright.
Cool. Again, I chose not to use this particular one, and the only reason why was I thought it was just a little bit too poppy for me, a little bit too Spice Girls. Not a big deal, though. You're more than welcome to use the song. Just understand this particular artist chose to only give you her vocals, which is fine, because generally in a remix, you're going to ditch everything except for the original vocals, and then do your own arrangement and put your own accompaniment to it. So, and this is actually pretty much the way a lot of artists will work. They won't usually give you all of their stems because they want you to do something completely different. We'll go back to our opportunities. So we've seen the Knox. We've listened to a little bit of Bridget. Here's a song that I've currently chosen, How to Destroy Angels. We'll pass this one by since we'll be working with it. Here is another band. I don't believe this one's new either, though. I think this has been up there for a while. This one actually has not. I haven't used this yet, so this will be a good example to kind of show you what it is that you would need to do to get the files. So again, I'm only using this as an example. This is not the materials we'll be working with, but in case you have not been to one of the previous live stream sessions and seen how to get the materials you need to get, I kind of want to give you that demonstration. It'll only take us a couple minutes. It'll probably take a little while to download. We'll just let that happen in the background. So you're given 3 opportunities. What does that mean? Well, that means basically you have, for free, you have 3 different artists that you can pull from. And you can pull from these whenever you want. So if you've just created an account and you've already downloaded an artist, not a big deal. That means you have 2 left. After that, they're going to want you to actually have a paid account. You don't have to do that for this class, so I'm not recommending you do that either. Normally, it's $50 a year. And for your $50, what do you get? Well, you basically get to download all of the artists they have for free for a year. So if you're into remixing, that's kind of cool because it gives you a lot of really good materials to work with from the start. But again, on your free account, you only have 3 opportunities that you can choose from. So for this month, that's perfect. Pick an artist, and if you decide later that you don't want to work on that, I don't usually recommend that, but if you want to change up, if something pops up that you think would suit your taste better, that's totally fine. So how do I get these files? Well, you can see here it says Enter Opportunity. And for those of you with a free account, this would actually take away one of your opportunities, but it's kind of an important step to getting the actual materials, so I need to show you how this works. So you'll click Enter Opportunity, and then you'll be presented with the files. First of all, they have a bunch of legal jargon here for our scum-sucking lawyers, basically saying, hey, we're going to sue your pants off if you try to sell this in any way without consent from the original artist. So these are copyright materials. So even though we're downloading the materials, they're giving them to us to remix them and then submit them back to this website for a chance at winning the contest. So once you choose Accept and Continue, just basically saying, hey, I'm not going to try to sell this or use it in any illegal fashion, then you'll be presented with files. So you can see down here we have the individual files. So if I wanted to listen to the individual files, we could sit and we could listen to them. For instance, we can listen to the drums real quick. And of course, you can skip through them as well. So we can skip through the drum parts. Cool, interesting drum sounds. But what you probably really want to do is eventually you're only going to use the vocals, but why not just download all the stems? It'll kind of give you a better idea for how the artist created their music, and it gives you all of their files, which is really cool, or usually most of the files. So we'll go ahead and we'll choose Download All Stems. Of course, this will start a download process instead of downloading the individual stems. Now, something I have to let you know about is you don't want to leave this page until everything has been downloaded correctly. Once you have downloaded these stems, and if you leave this page, you're no longer going to be able to get back to this page. It'll be locked out. And it's basically just for copyright issues. They don't want these files being given away to everyone on the internet. But if I take a look at my download manager, we can see it's currently downloading in the background, which is great. So we'll have all the files. Now, some really important, oh wow, our deadline on this one here is only 21 hours. So it doesn't look like I'll be remixing this for a submission. But at least we're showing you how to get the files. Important note, something that you'll want to pay attention to as well, is once this is downloaded, notice it added some different names to the files and things like that. I'm going to delete some of that information, and I'm going to add some important information that will evaporate once this contest goes away. And so that's why I like to add it to the actual file name itself. And that information is found under FAQ, Frequently Asked Questions. Navigate to FAQ, and you'll see a bunch of frequently asked questions. One of the more important ones is going to be this one here. What tempo is I Shouldn't Be Here, which is the name of the song. And what key is it in? So it's in the key of B minor at a tempo of 132 beats per minute. So that's the important information that I actually want to put into the file itself, because in the event that later on I just want to remix this for my own pleasure, I'll still have the files themselves, and I'll also have the pertinent information for the actual song itself. Oh, cool. Frank says this is one of the songs that he chose to remix. Unfortunately, it's not going to be what I use for the example that we'll use tonight, but that's cool. Let me go ahead and take a listen and see what the song actually sounds like. I have not listened to the original, so let's listen to it.
You take it off the clouds. You know we shouldn't be okay, no one knows. I know we shouldn't be here. And if I wasn't, I'd be thinking all about this one thing, wrong thing. You do this wrong. You do this wrong. She says you know you're home when I lost control of me. I gotta get it going. Without showing. I know I shouldn't be. I know I shouldn't be. I should take some time and a couple thousand miles and then come back with you. You just wanna fight. But we're staying on vacation, there's no driving you out your mind. Does it do you wrong? Now it's very wrong. You wanna rush it, 'cause I'll make an adjustment for you. Let's break over. Do this wrong. Do this wrong. Do this wrong. That's why I'm satisfied. That's why I feel so good. That's why I feel so alive. I know I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be. I shouldn't be.
Wow, very cool track. Very cool production for that song as well. Again, I hear a lot of possibilities with that. I could hear something a little bit more straight beat, 4 on the floor, little house jam going on, something like that. I could hear even some drum and bass influences that were already in the original track. And now I got the files, which is great. So the files will be downloaded here shortly, and we'll show you what I'm going to do with these files any second now. I tell you what, while that's downloading, let me take you to, and I want to show you where you may or may not realize you have 8.5 gigs of loop libraries that I want you to use for this project. So I want to show you where those are located. And again, while that's downloading, I'll let that do its deal in the background. Navigate over to your Avid account and go ahead and log in. Now, you already have created an Avid account because it's tied to your authorization for your Pro Tools. And while we're here, it's really important that you guys go ahead and make sure that your software and hardware is registered. There was a very important announcement via FSO on the announcements tab regarding Pro Tools and the 4 years of free upgrades. Now, I want to warn you in advance, this has nothing to do with Full Sail, but originally DigiDesign was saying, or Avid rather, they were saying that they would offer you 4 years of free upgrades. Well, apparently that window is now closing, and it's closing very quickly. So they didn't give us an exact deadline, but they did give a small extension to current Full Sail students. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and authorize your software and get it registered. I believe if you've already gone through the process, you've probably already done that. But in the event you haven't, please go ahead and do that, which will give you an upgrade path to Pro Tools 11, which has been announced, but it's currently not out yet. So Pro Tools 11 will be landing shortly, and there's a lot of new features that will be giving us a lot of fun to work with in version 11. One of the big ones, and one of the ones that we've been asking for the Pro Tools community for years, is going to be an offline bounce, or basically what you would have in Logic that would be like a freeze function where you can freeze tracks. You'll be able to freeze tracks, and you'll be able to do a faster than real-time bounce if everything is already in the box. Now, if you have outside keyboards that are coming into your audio interface, then you would still have to do a real-time bounce because those things have to get captured in real time. And you can understand why. It's recording and capturing, so it can't actually happen faster than real time. But anything that is inside of Pro Tools, you'll be able to render down and bounce faster than real time. Prince Cheatwidge was asking, is this free? I really am not sure about the process. I'm just kind of trying to convey the information that was given to me, and the information was do this immediately because the 4-year deal is now evaporating. And again, I don't have a specific close date, but I know if you go ahead and you get it registered and authorized, which you should already have done if you're running Pro Tools, but in the event somehow that you've missed that process, make sure you go ahead and do that. Now, the upgrade to 11, whether that's free or not, I don't know. I know for current users that are outside of the Full Sail program, their Full Sail offered basically I think it was a joint agreement between Full Sail and Avid, they would give you 4 years of free upgrades. Somewhere that has now gone away. And again, they extended it for a very short period for Full Sail students just to try and be fair in the process. And again, I apologize. It has nothing to do with Full Sail, but it really has to do with the business model of Avid. So let me quickly show you where to get the files, though. So if you go ahead and log into your account, takes us to a login page. Cool. My information is already filled out. I'll go ahead and log into my account. Now you want to go over here to view my product details. View my product details will get you to where we want it to be. You can see here once my screen refreshes. You can see all the different things I've purchased throughout the years. You can see I purchased Music Toolkit, Torque, which is a DJ software that's created by M-Audio, but still tied into the DigiDesign Avid name. But here under your Pro Tools, whatever version you currently have, you can see I upgraded from Pro Tools 9 to Pro Tools 10 at no charge. If you look under the Downloads tab, you can see here, any of the loops that I've been using in my project so far have all been from this. So Big Fish, you got dance DJ, hip hop, jazz, pop rock, R&B and funk, hard rock, and then some worldly loops. I would recommend downloading these one at a time. I tried to download them all at once, and it kind of choked my system, so download them one at a time. Or in the event that you have your original installation discs, it'd be quicker and easier just to pull them off there. If you look in that booklet, it basically came with like 3 discs in your installation. And there's some really great, Prince is saying he loves these loops. I love these materials too. Is there some cheesy stuff on there? Yeah, of course there is. There's always going to be some cheesy stuff in a loop library, but there's also some really great stuff. And so any of the drums that you're going to hear that I'm working with this evening, this is where I got them from. Okay, so let's go back and take a look here. This is our files that we just downloaded. So let's take a look where these files are located. They're going to be in my downloads folder. So let's hide Safari for right now. Let's go to my downloads folder. And here's the files that I was just working with. Let's pull them out of my downloads for right now. And again, I want to rename this, and I'm doing this to just archive it So let's take a look at the name of the file here. I'm going to slide this over so that my so that everything can be read easily. I actually like to go ahead. I know I'm a real stickler about getting everything correct, so I want to capitalize the artist name, get rid of any of these hyphens that are going on here, and of course we'll have to create a space between them. Name of the song is I Shouldn't Be Here. And all the other information I can get rid of. Okay, we've got it named correctly. Let's go ahead and let's add the other extra information to this as well. So we'll click back over into Safari. And again, it was in the key of B minor and 132 beats per minute. BPM stands for beats per minute. So let's add that to the file there that we were using. B minor, 132 beats per minute. So I just basically append this to the end of the file. B minor and BPM stands for beats per minute. That was 132. Oops, 132. Cool. Now, I actually archive these. That way, if I want to go back, I know this contest is going to end, but that's all right. I like to archive things, so I put them inside of my music folder, and then I've created here an artist remix files. That way, if I ever need to go back and find the original files, if I really mess something up bad, I've got an archive of them. You can see here, here's a bunch of different artists that I've collected over the years. Cool. So now I have those files. You can see all the files there. You want to import those into Pro Tools. You want to change your tempo to be the correct tempo, and then you can start working with those files. Oh, interesting. Reverse guitar. That's always kind of cool. Textures, which is probably going to be more like effects and things like that. Boom. Interesting. I wonder if they actually use DigiDesign's Boom, or if it's just some kind of effects drop. Well, I don't know. Let's tell you what. Let's try this out. Let's import it into Pro Tools and make sure everything works out, and then we'll jump into our materials for the day. So let's close our original session. Yeah, we'll save our work. Now, since I already have a bunch of the information about the artist name, let's go ahead and, since I'm going to create a new session, let's go ahead and highlight this. Oh, and I've got some hyphens still in there that I want to get rid of. Cool. And again, since we're going to create a brand new session, I just click the file name, and I'm going to select over an area here that I want to copy and paste for the name, so that when we go back to Pro Tools and we create a brand new session, Command N to create a new session. Let's see, 32-bit float, that's fine. Sample rate 44.1, that's good. You want to make sure that you have stereo mixed for your I/O settings, stands for input and output settings. Now it's asking where I want to save this. I created a separate folder in my music folder called Pro Tools. So I don't want to put it back in the original artist and remix files. I actually want to save it to my Pro Tools folder. And then since we copy the name, I can just paste it here. Excellent. We'll save it here. Now we need to import the files. Shift-Command-I will give you the quick key for importing. We'll go back to the artist and remix files. We'll go find the artist. Probably should have had a hyphen in between the artist name, but that's okay. We'll go back and fix that later. Select the files. Now you don't want to add them. You actually want to copy them. Because if you add them, it's going to reference the original files, whereas copy, it'll create a brand new copy of these files and place them in our Pro Tools session. So we'll choose copy and hit done. Now it's going to say, where do you want to save these? Well, it already defaults back to the correct audio files folder for your session. So go ahead and hit open. Now, once it's done converting these files, I believe the files are probably going to be 16-bit 44.1. It's now going to convert them to our sessions format. It's going to ask us where do you want them to go. We could put them over in the clips bin, but we're going to need to drag them into a track anyways, so we might as well just select new track. It'll actually do a couple things for us. It'll create the track for us, it'll name the track, and it'll place the files in the track themselves, so it saves us 3 separate steps. It also will name the files based off of, name the tracks, rather, based off of the file names. So go ahead and hit OK. And you can see all the files are there, and it's now rendering. And I did this because I really wanted to see what that file name boom was. And it turns out it looks like it's going to be an 808. So if we solo this out, we should hear an 808 kick. Cool. All right. And then if we add that in with the other hats, you can see we can solo that out. All right, you get the idea. Now, I want to show you something kind of interesting, though. Files aren't just going to naturally start working with the grid inside of Pro Tools until you actually have the grid lined up correctly. How do you do that? Well, let's start off by showing you the click track and letting you hear it with the click track. So I'm actually going to play this back, the click track, with the actual drum tracks. That way you can hear the conflict that we're going to have, because the original song is not 120 beats per minute, which is what our session, our default for the session currently is. So you're going to hear the click track playing back out of sync with the drums, and that's bad, obviously. So let's just listen real quick. Pull up our transport, make sure our click track is enabled. There we go. It's a mess. It's a real stinking mess because nothing works. It's not actually following the grid of your session at all. So to change the actual session's tempo, you see the tempo here, and if your tempo is not showing in your ruler view, this all the way across the top is called the ruler view, then you'll need to go in here and check it off. So maybe only the main ruler is showing. Make sure you check off tempo. That way you can actually see this ruler view. There we've got our tempo at the beginning, and we said it was 132 beats per minute, so let's change that. If you hold down Control, click on your tempo, this field will come up. Let's type in 132. Cool. Now if we play this back, it should actually line up with the grid. Let's make sure it does. Awesome, it works. So everything is perfect. We can actually get started on this remix if we wanted to. Now, I'm going to go back and revert to the materials that we've already been working on. So I just need to show you guys this first process, because this first process, believe it or not, this is one of the more important steps in your entire remix project. Because if the bars and beats are not lining up, then you're not going to hear, you're not going to be able to basically create the edits that you need to create. For instance, now that my grid is lined up, if I wanted to do some really cool things with the drums, everything would be rhythmic. For instance, we've got this one little hit right here. If I go highlight that hit, let's zoom in on that. Notice that I can select just that one drum beat. And it's done really easily. Then when I go to duplicate it, it's going to sound perfect with the materials. Let's take a listen. Let me find something that actually is a little bit louder so you can actually tell that that is in tempo. Let me solo something out here. How about this piece right here? Little bell. So that little bell sound, if we go in and we highlight just that bell sound, actually check that out. That actually wasn't quantized, so it's slightly off a little bit. How about this little guy right there? He seems to be a little bit more on. Duplicate it several times, and you're going to hear basically a little roll effect. So if we play this back, there's that beat that I had in there. So anyways, just kind of giving you guys some ideas. Notice you can change your grid resolution too. And if I wanted to select an entire bar and repeat this bar, there I've got 3 bars. Let's just do 2 bars. Cool. And notice if I duplicate this, it should work throughout the entire song.
This one thing, wrong thing. Everything we do is wrong. 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 That's why I'm satisfied.
It just drops right back into the song like nothing happened. So the really cool thing about getting the grid lined up is the grid is one of the most important things inside of your DAW, but there's nothing jumping out at you that tells you, hey, make sure the grid is correct. Once the grid's correct, you can start taking this apart and putting it back together in a way that did not originally exist. Let's use the same example, but try some of this on the vocals. This can get really interesting because you can create some new rhythmic patterns with the vocals. Let me solo out a little vocal section. Starting off at the beginning here, let's listen to it.
I know I shouldn't be here.
I Know I Shouldn't Be Here is the name of the song. So if I wanted to do something cool with, like, say, stutter edits, let's go ahead and let's create a stereo audio track. Shift Command N, use Command arrow right. Left and right arrows will change whether it's going to be stereo or mono. We'll create a stereo track. And I Know I Shouldn't Be Here is pretty much the name of the song, so that could be a really cool rhythmic piece that we could use in the song.
No, I shouldn't be here.
The word be here sounds like it's going to land pretty decently, so if I change myself to 16th notes, yeah, let's find the word be here.
Be here.
So there it is.
Be.
So if I want to do something kind of interesting with this, we could actually cut this out and just drag it to my new audio track. Maybe we'll call this Vox Effects. I'll separate it. And then I'm just going to drag it down below the track right beneath it. And then I'll hold down Option when I did that. So if I hold Option and drag it to the new locations, notice that it's locking to the grid, so it's really, really easy for me to paste it the way you see me pasting it. It's just locking to the grid. I probably could have changed my grid resolution to match the piece of audio as well. Quarter notes. That would have made it really easy. In fact, let's do this. This is kind of a little trick I like to do. I haven't done it in what we've been working on all week, so let me show it to you now. I'll consolidate this, Shift Option 3, create a little fade in all the way up to where he actually says that word. And we'll also need to drop this down because be here, this word is getting duplicated, so you're going to hear it, that one word get really loud. So it needs to come down by at least 3 dB. Because remember, it's basically repeating the same exact word. And if we go listen to this, this will be interesting because it's a little lead-in vocal effect that I used, just making sure my grid was correct. Let's take a listen and see how this came out. Whoa, song gets kind of zesty there if you listen to the vocals. Anyways, interesting little cool effects, and whenever your grid is correct, then that's when you can really start taking this apart and putting it back together in a way the original artist never even probably intended. Oh, wow, Prince, I'm really glad you said this. I swear you just gave me chills. This is what made me get into Pro Tools. I don't know if you guys saw Prince's comment. Prince says, this is what set Pro Tools aside from the other DAWs. And I happen to entirely agree with you 100%. When I saw this being done live in a studio setting, I immediately knew that this was the DAW that was going to be my home. I'd already used a lot of other DAWs. In fact, I was stuck on Logic for a lot of years, and there's nothing wrong with Logic. There's nothing wrong with any DAW. They're just like a car. It gets you to and from. It's a tool. It gets you to a destination. Whatever DAW you like, that's fine. But just understand Pro Tools is going to be what you're going to see in a studio environment. Logic is doing really, really well within the industry, but again, 90% of the time, you're going to be in front of Pro Tools. I want to show off just one other cool little vocal snippet edit we could do to this just to salt it up. And then I want to go back into today's materials. I want to delve into some MIDI. We're going to start replicating the bass line in my other song. And let's just do one other quick edit here, just kind of show you the stuff you could do, though. So let's listen to some of the lyrics. Taking off your clothes, huh? All right. Well, how about this? We could actually do a delay. And this is a weird little audio delay where I'm just going to separate it. I'm going to option drag it down, and then we'll put it in every other spot. Option dragging. And here I could actually just duplicate this. Take a look at here. I'll duplicate it with the dead silence up until this next section. We'll go ahead and I'll consolidate these, Shift Option 3. And then I'll do a fade out. And this will give it basically a delayed effect. So if we go back and listen to it, here, we'll just listen to these two sections here. But you get the idea. If we were to actually solo these two out, you'll probably hear it a little bit more distinct without all the other audio going on. I know I shouldn't be here with you taking off your clothes. You know I shouldn't be here. Okay. Now, I did hear that it was still a little bit loud. I think we're going to need to bring that Vox effect track down. Let's put the original Vox back. Let's bring this one down 6 dB. Give it another listen real quick. I know I shouldn't be here with you taking off your clothes. You know I shouldn't be here. Okay, if no one. All right, you get the idea. We could also do some other lead-in information. So if whenever you see a verse lead-in, just kind of like you saw me do with the word be here, you could also do lead-in information. So let's take a listen. I know I shouldn't be here. Basically the same stuff. Okay, so verse 2, same thing. I should take some time. Kind of like that word time. That kind of sounded cool. Time. So let's actually take that word time and do another stutter edit with it. Maybe on this one, maybe for this one, we'll do something a little more interesting. We'll go down to 16th notes. And I'll just take a little bit of this, maybe an 8th note of it, and kind of do a similar thing. Oops, let's separate it. Command E, Option drag it down, put it in a couple spots here and there. And maybe even to really give it some flavor, maybe just take this one little sample here, separate that, and change this into 32nd notes. Oh, we already are at 32nd notes. Huh, all right. 64th, I think it'll be a little too small. And if that's the case, we can just duplicate it a couple times. And you're just basically going to get another effect out of it. Should take some time. I just kind of created a little roll effect. Should take some time. So a lot of really cool stuff you can do once the grid is lined up, and that's really important. So I'm going to just save what I've done so far. Let's jump back into last week's project and kind of catch you up with where we were. For those of you that joined us at the beginning of the session, we went ahead and I was playing some of that work there. We'll go ahead and we'll close the session for now. Close up my remix files. You know what I also want to do? Let's get that. Before I forget, I do want that one hyphen in between the artist name and the song. I'm just a stickler for trying to get everything named really correctly. And let's go back up to Pro Tools and let's open up Recent. Quick little demonstration of some of the things we did last week. We actually added in some vocal effects. So you can see we have background vocals here, we have lead vocals. I'll play through the song, and then when we get through maybe some parts where you can hear effects, we'll let you hear how these effects were made. For instance, we'll play this little section here. And if you're interested in how these effects were made, unfortunately, I won't have time to do it today, but you're going to need to go back and actually watch the archive from last week. But I basically showed you how to create reverse reverb effects so that the very first word is accentuated. So if we listen to the actual vocals of the song, we'll put in our vocals effects, background vocals, and the lead vocals.
always been here.
So give it that little ghostly effect. Here's another one that we did.
Believe in it if you believe in it.
So what you're listening to that we created is this one word right here where she says how. So that right there, we created that by creating a reverse reverb effect. And again, if you're interested in how to do that, you're going to have to go back and listen to the archive. Here's one where we put a bunch of effects on it. You listen to it in the bed of the music. Cool. So that stuff's really cool. And what I want to do is jump into some MIDI today. I want to show you guys what it is you can do with the current materials that you have. In other words, I like to borrow from what the artist has already done and kind of rebuild what they've done, because that will help me then to reinterpret it in a fashion that I'm going to end up using. So let's go back and find that. Let's hide all tracks. Notice off the side you can just click and drag to hide tracks. I like to just hide them all. If you hold down Option will show all or hide all. And so I'm going to pull out the bass track here. And there are a couple things that I noticed when I was just listening to this, that there's actually some guitar parts mixed in with the bass. If we listen here at our second chorus, bring up our memory locations window. Oh, and remember, I saved some screenshots or some selections just showing you guys different things dealing with our memory locations. But notice I've gone ahead and I've stenciled the song out so we know how the song structure goes. And that's really going to help us out here in a moment when I start picking apart this bass part. In other words, I'm going to be able to probably just do the parts that I need to do and then drop them in where they need to be, because we've already got an outline of the song using memory locations. So if we take a listen at chorus 2, I believe we're going to listen to I guess I shouldn't have saved those presets. It's going to keep changing every time I do that. That's all right. I'll just get it at that location. I can see that that location is at bar 25. So asterisk 25, enter. And I'm using the numeric keypad, and that put me exactly at the point that we need to listen to. So let's listen to this. So I think I'm going to cut this part out and send it to a new track, because if I remember correctly, I believe this is guitar. Yep, so that's got to go. That's going to go to its new track, and I believe starting it somewhere around this location here. We'll change my grid. I believe the bass starts here. Now the cool thing about this is it's going to be really easy to duplicate that. It's basically I'm just going to find the notes on my keyboard here and replicate basically the same exact bass line. First of all, let's get those guitar tracks to their own track. And the cool thing again is, since our grid's lined up, this is going to be easy to do. I just select them and pull them to a new track. Shift-Command-N will create a stereo track. I can see I've already got my stereo track there. Let's go ahead and name it guitars. Or actually just singular, since I only heard one guitar. And let's pull it to the appropriate track. So these are already caught up, because I originally cut it up in the event that I wanted to change my session tempo. And I'm not going to worry about copying them, I'm just going to drag it up. Now notice how things want to move a little bit, just based off of when I'm pulling things around like that. And I'm in grid, so that's cool. It'll easily lock up to where I want it to be. But I want to show you a cool little trick here in the event that you're not in grid mode. If you're in slip mode, and if you hold down Control, notice when I go to move this, it locks it into position. So just another quick little savvy tip or trick in the event that you're... And notice I can't move it in, even to a new grid location. Control will then constrain the movement of that audio so that it cannot go to any other location, which is kind of cool. Good, that's where it needs to be. Let me listen to this part too. I'm not really sure what this is, if this is guitar or bass. Okay, that's more bass, but I know we got some guitar somewhere over here, so let's actually take a listen to this. All right, so here our guitars start off again. That's all right. We're just going to drag them up to the appropriate track. I'll hold down Control since I'm still in slip. I'll put it in the right location. You know what I want to do too? I want to listen to make sure that last bass note didn't end up in here, because it looks like the bass kind of gets cut off here. And it could have drifted into the guitars. So let's actually listen to that. It is a little bit carried over into there. You can slightly hear it. I'm not going to focus on that for the time being. And it looks like we have more guitars here at the end. So the bass is pretty simple here. Notice, by the way, if I double click, even with the selector tool, it'll select an individual file. If I triple click, it'll select all files on that playlist. We know that a playlist is the same thing as a track. Again, I'm just going to listen to the guitars. I can tell pretty much by looking at the waveform that it's going to be guitars, but just to make sure. Yep, guitars again. So let's grab them. Let's put them on their correct track. Yep. Undo my movement there because I moved it slightly. Hold down Control. Drag it up. Coolio. Now I can get rid of all this extraneous stuff here because it's just a wasted space for right now. All these dead silence files, we don't need them. They are not needed. And so if you look at here, to replace the bass, it's not going to take that much work from me. All I have to do is replicate these two parts. Shouldn't be too hard. I'm probably even going to do a different arrangement than the original song. But again, I like to usually stencil out the song in its song form, because then it allows me to really make those decisions. Once I have the original song in place, I can really start dragging things around to new locations, being that I've already got my memory locations pointing out portions of the song. So let's do this then. We'll get rid of viewing the guitar right now. I don't really need to see it. And let's zoom in on our bass and see what we got going on here. Option F will center any selection that you have. That's really going to be useful so we can kind of see what's going on with the files we have selected. Now, I'm going to show you the old school way first of creating a MIDI track and then an aux track, and then I'll explain to you why it's the old school way. But it's kind of important so that you understand the difference between an aux track, a MIDI track, and then an instrument track. So let's do it the old school way first. Let's create a stereo aux. And when I say the old school way, I mean that if you've owned a previous version of Pro Tools before version 8, I believe 7.4 is the very first version that instrument track showed up. So before that, you actually had to do the process that you're watching me do. And in the future, if you ever see somebody do this, then you'll understand why they did this. They're probably kind of stuck in an old school method of working, but I still want you to understand what it is they're doing. So we'll create a stereo aux input. I'm also going to create a MIDI track. So why did I create these two tracks? Well, for one, the aux track is where the virtual instrument's going to go. So let's pull up a virtual instrument. I'm going to use something that you all have. A very good instrument called Vacuum. This is made by Digidesign, so we'll all be able to use this together, which is nice. I really like this little virtual instrument. It basically emulates analog style. Uh-oh, come on. For those of you that are familiar with Macs, that's not usually a good sign whenever you see a little spinning ball like that. So what I like to do is do a save as. In the event that something crashes, that means I'll have a backup place. So you can see that if we look at this, I believe this was V2. So I'm going to save this one as V3. And you can already see I have multiple sessions inside of my session folder. That's fine. That gives us a backup point. So we'll go ahead and do a save as. You can see I'm in the new save as version. Now we can move forward. Now, I'm not done here yet, though. If I wanted to hear my synth, if I go and hit my keyboard, I don't know if you guys can hear that. I'm hitting my controller off to the side here. We're not hearing anything. And the reason for that, it has to do with the routing. Let me just hide this track we're not using currently so you can get a better idea of what's going on. Notice the output right now of my MIDI track is not assigned to trigger anything. I need it to be triggering this vacuum. So this vacuum is going to be the destination for my MIDI information. Now that as the destination for where the MIDI should go, let's record on the track. So now from my brainwaves out to my fingertips, from my fingertips into the controller, from the controller into Pro Tools. Now Pro Tools has a destination for what that MIDI should be triggering. Remember, we all know MIDI's not audio, it's information, and we're telling it now what information to be triggering. Cool. I've got my synth under control, so now we can start working. Now, I showed you the old school way because if you ever see somebody working in this method, just understand that they're probably used to an older version of Pro Tools, and we could actually simplify this process. But what I want you to see first here is MIDI is happening on my MIDI track. The audio is happening on the aux track. So for some reason, I wanted to record this down as audio. I would need to then come out of the aux track here because that's where my sound's coming from. It's not coming from the MIDI track. MIDI track's information. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and delete these tracks right now, and let's simplify this, and let's show you an instrument track. And the reason I want to show you an instrument track is an instrument track actually is a hybrid of both of these tracks combined into one. So let's delete this and show you how to do that. Go ahead and delete these. I just right-clicked on the track name, Shift-Command-N to create a new track type. We'll create a stereo instrument track. And here I'll go ahead and instantiate on an insert. Now, I know you guys are used to putting virtual instruments and Logic on the input. All plugins, including virtual instruments, any type of plugin inside of Pro Tools, it all goes on an instrument track. So let's go down to our instruments. We'll go find vacuum. Cool. And now all I should have to do would be to record on my track. And I do want to show you some more extra information that's not really quickly visible, but if I show off the instrument portions here of the track, I want you to see that MIDI information is showing up here. So if you record on the track, our MIDI is showing you MIDI information is here, the audio is here, so if I wanted to get this recorded to an audio track, I'd route the output to the input of a new audio track to record it. Now, this is a cool sound. It's just the default patch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and find something in the bass section. So if you look under factory default, you'll see you've got a lot of different categories here. We'll go to bass. Not really the sound I'm looking for. I'm going to try to find something kind of similar to the original. Chances are I'm going to find nothing like the original, but I'm just going to use the plus and minus button you see here that'll allow me to go through the individual patches without having to come up here and go in here to do so. So we'll just hit the plus sign. Nice thumpy bass. I kind of like that. We might come back to that one. I'm going to use that for right now. I'll probably come back and change that patch, but I want to show you a little trick I like to do. I like to go ahead and put the MIDI information in first, and that way we have a pattern. And then I like to come back, and while that pattern is in loop playback, just start changing the sounds until I find something that really suits the song. We'll stick with the sound for right now. Again, I'll probably come back and change it. And what I want to do is I want to mimic their bass sound. So let's pull up their bass. Let's go back over here. I'm going to actually listen to it a couple times, and I'm just going to try to fumble around. I'm not a keyboard player, but you don't have to be a keyboard player to be a producer. I'm more of an engineer than an actual musician. But again, to do the kind of work I do, you don't necessarily have to be fluent with an instrument. It does help, guaranteed. But just kind of show you my noodling way of finding things. So all the mistakes I make, nobody's ever going to hear in the final project, so don't be afraid to just try this out. So let's listen to it back, and we'll see if we can find the original note. Cool. Sounds like they're basically just oscillating between a higher note and a lower note. So I'll go ahead and play those in. And again, I'm just going to find my way through this real quick. So if you hear me making some mistakes, go ahead and laugh away at home. We won't hear once we're done with the finality of this. So I believe we go. We'll find it here. Let's put myself in record arm, which I am. We'll start recording. Now, I found the notes here, but you could hear that was pretty gnarly. It didn't sound very good at all. That's okay, though. We're going to end up fixing this. I wasn't right on the downbeat of the note, and I do kind of want to show you a way you could catch that downbeat. I could have created a pre-roll for this, but I want to show you another feature that we could have done instead. Since I already found the original note, I could have actually had Pro Tools start recording at the point of selection. What do I mean by that? Well, let me kind of show you. If we pull up our transport, I did Command 1 with the numeric keypad, or if you look underneath your Windows menu, there's transport. You have something on here called wait for note. Notice you have a pause symbol, and then there's our friend 5-pin DIN. 5-pin DIN meaning the end of a MIDI cable. And so it's basically showing you that this is meant to wait. So if I have the track record armed, if I hit record, Pro Tools is now going to sit here and wait. Notice it's just sitting there waiting. That way I can hit that first note on the downbeat, and then it will start recording. And of course, I didn't land right on the actual note value of what they did, so let's go in and see how bad I loused this up, and then we can correct it. But just kind of showing you some features with MIDI that are really cool as far as wait for note. Let's see how far off I am. Notice here, if we change our grid resolution, you can actually see where they hit the notes. So I could actually just grab these notes and drag them to their location. And I believe this looks like it's going to be in 16th note grid. Yeah, you can see there's that note, there's that note, there's that note. So you can see how far off and how bad I was, but not a big deal. Now, you cannot do any editing of the notes themselves when you're in the default view of MIDI, which is clips. If you're on versions 8 or 9 of Pro Tools, this will be called regions. And it just has to do with the information here being stored in your regions list or your clips list. It's the same exact thing from version to version. They've just basically changed the name of the function, but everything functions the exact same way. So let's change from the clips view, which I'll show you why that's an important view in a moment. Once we have the arrangement all laid out, I'm going to change back to clips in order to copy the same information around so I don't have to keep repeating the information. Let's go to notes view. And with notes view, notice here I could just take and grab the individual notes. So if I grab this note and just pull it over, of course, let's put it in grid mode. That'll be useful. It'll stick right to the note value of where it should have been. Some of these I was so far off that I probably could not have used my quantize function, so I'm manually quantizing. And if I go back and listen, I think I'm going to have to paste in a couple extra notes. I see dun, dun, dun. I think there's another note there. Let me listen back. Let's solo out this part. 1, 2, 3. I think it's going to be this note here. Oops. I'm going to just drag that to its correct location. I think it did the bend right there. I just option dragged to get that in its correct location. That guy looks good. That guy looks good. That guy looks good. Of course, your ear is going to be the final judge in all of this. So if we go back and take a listen to what I did here, let's take a listen. Not bad. That's actually pretty good. I think the same thing actually repeats here. There's one different note. So instead of having to record all that again, let's go back over into clips view. And I'm going to separate at the point where we go into this next little bar. We'll separate this. And I got to show you something that'll trip you up if you're not careful. So basically, I just option dragged it again to copy that information over. But that one last little note that was slightly different, if I change that note here, it's actually going to change it because it's referencing the same information. So if I change it here, it's going to change it here. Let me show you exactly what I mean. I'll make the mistake first, and then I'll show you how to correct for that kind of mistake. So let's go back into notes, and let's listen for that one note that was different. It goes up. I believe that's going to be the same thing. Nice, perfect. All right, now let's take a look, though. I did the same thing to this last clip. Oh, interesting. It didn't look like it did. Okay, cool. Let's listen to it again. All right, cool. My mistake. I thought we were going to basically be referencing the same information, but that's all right. What I'm going to do now is basically copy the same thing over here to our next piece. I'm going to option drag it, go back to clips, because this will allow me just to option drag. And it's basically the same pattern. It's going to be using different notes, so then I'm going to have to go in and change these notes. Go back to our notes view. And of course, when we listen to this, it's not going to be exact. It goes down. So it sounds like my first notes are fine. I have a problem. I don't think these are sounding correct. Let's go back and listen just to make sure. But I think I've found the right note value. Yeah, it's just this one note here. Cool. And here we go. Listen to this one. Oh, excellent. So it just basically repeats. So this is really, really easy. This is the cool thing about this. Understand, again, I mean, I'm not an accomplished musician, but I can sit there and find the notes and noodle them out and find it. Let's go back to clips. I'm going to copy this one over, and we just have that one last note to change. So holding down Option, just dragging it to its correct location. And I think from there it's going to end up repeating. All I have to do is find this one downbeat of this last note. Option F to center my material. The one note goes down, so select it. You know what? I actually have a problem with these notes. These top notes, I'm hearing something different here. You guys know, it might not translate very well for you guys at home, but these don't sound like they are the right note. There we go. Those were off. So if that's the case, these guys are off too. This probably comes up. This one little guy here, use the lasso, put him up. Let's listen to it. Now this bass line is so simple that I think it just repeats after that. Hopefully that's the case, because then all the work for our bass line is now done. Let's go back and listen. So what I'm going to do is let's just change it back to clips view. Let's take the work we've already done. Let's just duplicate it. 1, 2, there we go. And let's listen to it to make sure everything matches up. And if there's an error, we'll go back and change it. But honestly, I think the bass line is done throughout the entirety of the song. And again, we'll go back and reference and listen in a second. I got some issues with that right there. These notes here again are still not at the correct location. Might be just some weird overtones I'm hearing, but I feel like these are not the correct note value. There we go, that's correct. And if that's the case, then I know it's going to be the same thing. So let me actually undo some of my work that I just did as far as duplicating. Because some of that stuff was wrong. Listen to it again. Switch back to our clips view. And give it a whirl. I don't know if I accidentally hit Command Z and undid something, but those notes weren't sounding right. Hey guys, you guys there? I'm getting some kind of weird interference coming through. You guys there? All right, that's all right. Not really sure why, but I had a huge amount of static come through my speakers. Did you guys have the same thing happen to you? Okay, cool. Yeah, we lost audio and now we're back. Sorry about that, guys. So you haven't missed anything. I was just going back to take a look at the work I've done with the bass line here. I want to listen to it again, make sure I've got everything right before we move forward. So I know it's tedious, but we just got to give it a quick listen. All right. All right, here's what's happened. This first 4 bars were good to go, but it changes slightly. It's not the same exact note, so we're going to have to go back and actually fix this up here. So if we take a listen here, the notes are slightly different. Let's go back and we'll duplicate that piece over and let's find out where the notes actually are. I'm going to switch myself back to notes view. By the way, there is a quick key for switching these playlist views. The quick key is it's Control, Command, and then you use your arrow keys. It'll actually go through all the different playlist views. I generally will use Option with this as well, because if you hold down Option, let me show you this real quick. I know this is a small detour, but I just want to show you all the tracks. Because if we look at all the tracks in our session here, make them a little bit bigger so you can see. If you hold down Control Option Command and rotate, notice it goes through all your different playlist views as well as automation views. That can be really helpful when you're trying to get through and see all the different things going on with your session. But just showing you quickly how to change playlist views for your tracks. That's holding down Control Option Command and then using your arrow keys. Let's get everything back to being standard waveform view. Hide all our tracks again. Pull up the original bass track. And then pulling up our new instrument track. I'm going to call this synth bass. We need to go ahead and name it as well. SYNth bass. And then this one little guy here, there's different note values going on. So I thought we could just copy them over, but let's listen. I see what's happening here. It's going to be this. Oh, all right, slightly different. I thought it was going to be this one. I'll go ahead and I'll drag it over, but it looks like we're going to have to doctor this up a little bit because the notes are slightly different. So not the exact same note values. So stretch this out slightly. I'm hearing intermittent audio. I don't know if you guys are. Everything looks good on my end. I do have a separate monitor set up to the side to monitor what's going on, but I noticed we might be having some audio drops. If anything goes weird or random, just let me know, and that way I can put a halt to where we're at. But so far, it looks like we're okay. All right, let's listen up here again. Be good for me to change my grid resolution so that that'll lock into place. And let's choose 16th notes. And let's try it out. And I think that's going to repeat on the next one, so change ourselves back to Clips View. Option drag this over. One last note is the only note I have to change. That's at the very end there. Switch back to my notes view. Coolio, and let's listen to the next section. A lot different from the other portion there, so we're going to have to copy this over and then find those notes. Not a big deal, it'll be easy to do. Option dragging again. Not the right notes, that's okay. This note stays up, and I believe we'll just have to change it for the next passage. Clips view again, option drag, and that one note I believe is going to have to go down. Let's take a listen. And that goes up. Okay. Notes view. Grab the one note. Listen to it, make sure I got it right. Coolio. And hopefully this just repeats. I believe I've got that somewhere else here. You know what? I'm off on this a little bit. The bottom notes of this section are not the right notes. If that's the case, it's going to be the same thing for these notes here as well. Alright. So again, I'm just actually going to do the copy and paste method. We'll listen to it and we'll make sure it's right or not. So we're going to do clips view, option drag it into place, option F to center it. We'll listen back to it. I'm sure the notes values are not correct, so we'll end up having to change it. Option drag, do the same thing for the next bar. We're almost done. And this one goes up, so instead of down, and we're almost done here. And the cool thing about this is I don't think the bass changes, so from here on out, for that other section where we have bass parts, we can just pull this over and all the same information is going to work. So once you have it done once, we'll end up using the same information, which is going to be really helpful. Clips view again. You can kind of see why Clips view is like Regions view, but it's like Regions view for MIDI. It allows you to move the same information over or copy and paste, which is really, really helpful. Let's select these notes. I believe that's our new value there. All right, and one last little section here. Clips view, option drag. Let's give her a listen. And there's one extra note there right at the end, so I'm going to have to figure out what that is. We'll go over here back to Notes View. I think it's going to be the same last note, maybe not. And what's really going to let me know is my ear. I think it's trying to resolve and return us back to the original note. I think that should be it, and I think that note just kind of holds. So if this was done correctly, I should be able to turn this back over into Clips View, and I should be able to just option drag this over into place where our other bass part starts. Let's put it in 1 bar increments, option drag, and let's listen to it. It may be slightly different, I'm not sure. So again, your ear will let you know. And guess what? They're not the same. That stinks. That means I'm gonna have to go back and do the same thing to this whole piece, which is not that big of a deal. We just got to figure out what note values they are. Let's just do that real quick. I know it's gonna be arduous. You'll have to watch me drag some notes around, but once we get it done, it's done. So, and then I really want to show you. You know what? Actually, let me go ahead and skip to this part because I want to show you this. This is kind of cool. This is a trick I do a lot. I'll go ahead and, like you see, I'll have the pattern all created, and we're going to go back and change this here in a moment. But let's stick with this piece that we do have correct right here. And I like the original bass patch that I chose, but I think it could use just a different patch. So let's flip back around to our vacuum. We'll pull up the plugin itself. And we'll just let the pattern go, and I'm going to start clicking my plus and minus just to find different bass sounds. It's so easy sometimes to get stuck on a sound because after you hear it within your project, you get stuck with hearing it that way. So you'll get comfortable using the same sound, but sometimes it's important to jump outside of your normal thought process. While I already like this bass sound, I bet you anything, I've done this a lot in the past, I bet you anything, just rolling through the different sounds, I'll find something that suits the song even better than the patch that we currently have. By the way, if we listen back to this, I could make this sound a lot more like the original by just rolling off some of the cutoff on our voltage-controlled oscillator. So let's take a look here and let's listen to it. Sounds a lot more like it. Maybe take some of the attack off. Let's just try some different random patches. Kind of interesting. So check this out. Let's do this too. I kind of like it. It's not really a bass sound anymore. But that's okay. There really isn't a whole lot in the song that's considered a lead. So what I'm going to do is we're going to try something here. I'm actually going to duplicate this track. And then we'll mute it, and I'm going to go find another patch. In other words, if we select the track name here, you right-click, and then you say duplicate, it's going to duplicate the entire track, including the plugin. You guys will remember that from your week 1 assignment. For right now, I'll go ahead and unsolo the original. I still want to go find new sounds, so we'll leave that one the way it was, but let's see if we can find something else too. Oops, changing the wrong one. That's kind of cool, really kind of cutting through. Maybe we'll come back to that, number 14. I think that sounds a lot like the original. Now, one thing I did kind of hear while I was listening to this particular one was it sounded like I might have missed a note. Sometimes with these lower note registries, it's hard to hear. So I almost think I might have pasted in an incorrect note value for one of these. If that's the case, I want to fix it now. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to audition this and listen to it all the way through. I know this is kind of choking up the aesthetics of learning new tricks, but I want to get this done right the first time, so I don't think I'm really hearing that anymore. Nope, everything's right. It was just the overtone of one of the patches that I happen to be using. It kind of threw me off there. So I've got two bass sounds together. Now, typically your bass, you usually don't want to layer these sounds together. So I could do a couple different things here. We could probably try. Notice I'm blending two sounds together that are very, very similar. So, by the way, let's go ahead and let's name these synth bass -A. Next track -B. And that way I can reference the two and understand that they are different from one another. Listen into them, blend it in with one another. Let's go ahead and let's listen back to this. Let's listen back to it with everything excluding their original bass. Let me show you something I kind of like to do as well. So you've seen how I'll go through and I'll create a pattern based off the original pattern. Then what I like to do is record this down to audio so I can do some other manipulation to it, like maybe some of the stuff you saw me do, whereas I have lead-in lines to bring in parts. So what I want to do for right now, that synth A, which if we go back and listen to it, it's just kind of a little stab right now, and it kind of sits in nice when we layered it in with the other bass sound. Of course, you'll pick whatever you guys want to pick as far as your sounds that you guys are going to use. But I want to show you some other creative things you can do with this. Now it's currently still in the MIDI state. We're hearing the audio being triggered from the synth, but I actually want to capture that. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and hide the original bass for right now. We'll come back to that in a moment. I want to show you some really cool stuff here. So I want to capture everything that I just did with this one particular synth, and I want to capture it as audio. Let's create a stereo audio track because that's what the original track is, so we can match the track type. Let's go out of an available bus. For right now, I'll just pick bus 21 and 22. Not a big deal. It just needs to match on the input. Bus 21 and 22. Cool. So the sound's coming out of this track and into this track, and we're going to record it. Let's go back over here and take a look at each of these tracks that we're dealing with, and we'll make this one real nice and big so you guys can see it getting captured. And remember, I had wait for note turned on. We need to turn that off. Otherwise, Pro Tools is just going to sit there and blink away. Let's record this down as audio, and that way I can show you some of the cool tricks we could do with this. Of course, you guys aren't hearing it. Ooh, overload. Because I don't have it soloed. Let's go ahead and solo it so you can hear it. Cool, I now have it as audio. Now we can do some really cool things like change our grid resolution and maybe go and reverse some of these parts. So currently, let's go to 16th note view. For instance, you can hear Trent Reznor likes to really mess with the sounds a lot. So how about this guy gets reversed? We can even cut this up into each individual parts, because right now, since we're in 16th notes, you can see pretty much everything we did with 16th notes. How about going over here to our edit menu, going to separate clip, and telling it to separate on grid. Cool, it just sliced up that entire passage. That'll allow me to go in and reverse just the sections that I want. How about we reverse this one? We'll go to Audio Suite, go down to Other, go down to Reverse. We'll render it. And how about every note that actually starts in on a new bar value? So if that's the case, let's switch it to 1 bar increments. I'm going to do the same thing to this one. Render it. And I'm just picking on the very first note of each of these measures, just because I know it'll be a good spot to get started on trying some of this reverse effect. So what does it sound like? That's the good question. It may not actually sound good. Let's listen to it first. So notice it kind of burped into that other one. So what I'd probably want to do is something like this. Put us back into 16th note measures. Let's reverse it back to the original direction that it should be. But before we do that, let's go ahead and let's duplicate this out. Shift Option 3, consolidate it. And I'm actually going to, notice I'm going to edit this fade here. So I'm going to edit the fade by just double clicking, give it a little parabolic curve. That way it kind of introduces that bass part. Listen to it without soloing it out.
Almost seems like yesterday. Hard to picture.
I didn't like these reverse parts that I did. They just didn't work out. You can see where this could be really creative throughout the track. All right, cool. We've got to record it down as audio. We should probably try and find where those guitar parts are and basically duplicate the guitar parts too, but put them in as a synth part. I'll probably want to hang off and do that for you guys next week. And let's go ahead and see if we've got some questions. So far, the chat field has been really quiet, and I'm thinking you guys are probably either falling asleep on me or you guys are just entertained in watching what's going on. Let's see if we got some questions from you guys about anything that you guys have seen so far tonight. Or actually, let's just open up any kind of questions you guys have. Cool, Felix. Nice. Awesome. All right, cool. If there's no questions, I'm going to head over into those guitar parts, and we're going to try and work on some of those guitar parts. All right, cool. Let's do this, though. Let's make sure we got the bass nailed before we start into that. So for right now, I'm going to mute this track. We'll call it Synth Bass A Audio. S Bass A. And we can just call it S Bass A. It's just going to have basically a different name than any of the other tracks. So we know that that's the synth bass and it's the audio version of it. I'll mute it for right now because what I really want to do is I want to go back and take a look at the original bass. We're going to make sure we have all those parts correct. We can actually hide our S bass for now that we converted into audio. Let's go see what we got going on this bass track. It sounded like it was just slightly different, which is okay. It means we won't really have to do that much work since I already have the pattern down and the pattern hasn't changed. It'll be simple just to figure out where these notes go. So note value, cool. Oh, that's right. And we are not going to hear that because the output, we need to change back to our built-in output so we can hear it. And I have a feeling if, let's hide our transport real quick. Cool, we found it. I'm just basically going to copy it over. So grab that clip, option drag, we're just copying it. Same exact information. I think we got the bend at the end again that we have to worry about. Let's take a listen. Cool, no problems with that one. So this one we're going to have to worry about. Notes are not the same. Notes view. Cool, that one's done. Move on to the next one. Looks like it's the same information from the one before. Change it to clips view, option drag. Take a listen. Coolio, move to the next section, option F to center it. This note goes down. Good to go on that one. Same thing, we're just going to copy this over. So clips view, option drag, same information. Save us some time. What just happened? Uh-oh. Hang on a minute. Oh, I copied from the wrong section. Okay, so it's this guy here. Option drag. Oh, this is kind of cool too. I did this by mistake, but notice any region that you click on, it'll take you into the MIDI editor window. which is cool and all. It's basically just a separate window that Pro Tools has. I don't usually like to use it because I like to stay within the same window, but this would allow me to rearrange the notes if I wanted to, as far as dragging the notes around without having to switch back and forth between these views. So it can be useful. So we saw this section's fine, which I believe which basically needs to be duplicated over to here. I believe we just pick right back up from where we were. So let's try this real quick. I believe that's not exactly the same information. Looks like it might be this then. So I'm going to option drag this over. Again, I'm just trying to do some guesstimations on what this is going to be. And if that's the case, then I bet this next part's going to be this. Just option drag it on over, and we should be done. Alright, our bass is completely done for the song. Now I can go back, and what I want to do too is, remember, I have that same pattern copied on a track below it because we were blending the sounds together. So to make sure all this information is correct, what I'm going to do, let's change my grid resolution. I'm going to hide this Audio Suite plugin. We'll change it to 1-bar increments, and then it'll just help me as far as option dragging this down. So I hold on to option, just drag it down, and now we know we have the same exact bass line on our synth B. All right, bass line is complete. Let's go back and grab those guitars. And the guitars are really simple, like a one-note pattern as well. Remember, we pulled the guitars. They were originally in the same track as the, as the bass. And I wanted them on their own track, and that's good because now they're isolated from our bass. So we can hide all of our bass tracks for right now. And we can pull up just guitars. And we'll create a new stereo instrument track. And I'm basically going to pull up any kind of synth patch that I think might resemble something like a guitar. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly like a guitar. Listen to the guitars here. Can't get more simple than that. I mean, it's basically just an eighth note plucked. So one string, we just find the same note, and we're there. In fact, let's go ahead and switch to Clips View. I'm sorry, Notes View. Let's grab our pencil tool and just change our resolution here to eighth notes. Cool, you can see where we played a little ahead and behind the notes slightly. And we'll just find the note value. And oh yeah, we're gonna need a virtual instrument as well. So let's put up our virtual instrument here. I don't know. Actually, let's try using Expand. Expand actually does have some guitar sounds. I'm probably gonna end up going with some other virtual instrument, but I want to show you this as well. Expand is really, really cool. This comes with every Pro Tools system. And while Vacuum, the other synth that you saw us using earlier, is nothing but synthesized sounds, Expand will have, death ball. Expand will have all kinds of sounds. It'll have natural instruments like woodwinds and pianos, as well as synthesized sounds. So think of this as like a software version of like a Chord Triton or a Phantom or a Motif, which is basically just a nice keyboard that has a big palette of sounds. If we want to find a particular sound on here, we could go through and actually find guitars. So if I look at them in factory default, let's see, I see I've got guitars there. I have a feeling, here's our string acoustic. We'll record arm the track. Again, not the sound I'm going to use, but for right now, I'm just going to use it to stencil in the sound of what we're using. So this one track here. Let's solo this. So that's the note they're using. So all I have to do is just keep duplicating this for now until they change the note. Duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. And if we listen back here, doesn't get much easier than that. Just repeats the same information here, so duplicate it. Same information there, duplicate. Oops. Highlight the information. Duplicate again. Yeah, it gets pretty easy, doesn't it? Okay, here we go and find a new note value. Zoom into it. Get my time grabber tool. Oh, then it goes up in a section. And what are we doing here? Okay, some change ups there. Just little stair steps back down to try to resolve. So I'll duplicate that. And if we go look at the notes here, you'll see here, we can actually look at the player himself. We can actually see the individual notes. I believe he landed back on the original note value. Let's listen. Uh-oh. Oh, I'm so off here. I apologize, guys. Let me check this out. Cool. Now I've got the pattern again. Remember, I didn't like the sound. I just used the sound to kind of find what it is I wanted to hear. So let's go through, pull up the plugin again, and let's find a really cooler sounding sound that sounds a little bit more like the original artist. So we'll pull up expand. And again, I'm just going to use the plus sign. In fact, let me see if we actually have something called electric guitar in here. We might actually have. We have electric pianos. Let me see if I got anything here. Soft lead, strings, vocals, melodies, guitars. Here we go. We got Strat. Let's go ahead and jump past all of these and go straight to something that we like. A ukulele is obviously not going to work. That wah was kind of cool. I kind of like that wah, but let's just try a couple other things here. This distorted guitar is not too bad either. When I took off a little bit of the cutoff, it made it sound a little bit more like the original. That sounds pretty cool. Let's go figure out what those other guitar parts are. Hopefully they're the same thing, so I can just copy them over. But like we saw before, they may not be. Let's take a look and see what we got here. So we've got these original guitar parts. Let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and change this into clips. And this whole clip here, let's see if we can just drag this over and see if it'll work. Didn't work for us last time. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes not. Option drag. Still, even if we don't find the exact, if it's not the same exact, it'll be easy to replicate it since it was one-note values. We'll go back to soloing out these two parts so we can hear these just together. I tell you what, just for the purposes of this part, I'm going to go ahead and revert back to just the very first patch. And the only reason I'm doing this is because that's going to drive me crazy with it soloed out and me listening to that sound. So just the one individual string is fine for now. I just need to hear it. I believe this section here is going to need to be moved forward. But let's just try doing this because this is definitely not the right stuff. So let's cut this out. A little slicey dicey. Option drag. Definitely not the same parts, but again, we can go in and find them one note at a time. Now, being that we're about to wrap class, I'm going to hold off on fixing this little section here because we've got some mixing opportunities coming at us next week, and I also want to open it back up for questions. I know you guys didn't have any questions earlier, but we're going to wrap for tonight, being that it is 9 o'clock, and some things that you guys might want to ask or might have in the back of your mind would be some of the MIDI stuff that we've gone over today. One thing I have not shown, so I'll go ahead and show this to you. You have, if you look underneath event operations, you'll find all the features that you're used to seeing as far as quantize, changing velocity. Ooh, that's something we should do. Let's show you velocity. I think I showed this to you guys last week, but I want to go ahead and show it to you anyways. Let me name this, or call this synth guitars. Cool. So I've got tracks and names, so I'll know what they are. I know I want to fix this stuff here, but again, we'll do this later. I want to talk about velocity just real quick as a last note for tonight. On our synth bass line, oh, that's not the same one. We want to see this one. I probably should have showed this to you guys earlier, but on our synth bass, I wanted to show you the different velocities, because when I first put in that information, we take a look at velocities. You see we have all these little different velocities, and sometimes this can be a good thing because it gives it more of a random nature, more like a traditional player. You may decide that you want these to be more static sounding or more synth-like, so you may want to go and change your velocities. Velocity is basically the quickness of how hard you hit the notes. So if I want these to all be the same, I could just highlight everything. So if I triple click on my track, it'll select everything. And then if I use my trim tool, pull all these up so they're all the same value. Or we could have used that velocity window. If you look underneath event again, event operations, change velocity, and if we could just tell this to be all 127, in other words, as hard as possible. So there's a couple of different ways of doing that. Understand quantize is there for you too. Anytime you're looking at MIDI notes, let's go ahead and look at notes value. You have to have, oh, here's a good example. Let's actually go back to velocities. I'm sorry. So I changed my velocities back because I want to show you that those features, anytime you're using any of my quantize or velocity functions, they actually are happening based off of Let's get back down to velocity here. They're acting based off of your selection. So notice here that just the portion that I have selected when I hit apply. So make sure if you're trying to quantize something, make sure you have those notes selected that you want to quantize, because any of these functions that you're doing in MIDI, they happen based off a selection. Otherwise, Pro Tools doesn't know what it is that you're trying to quantize. So the quick key that you guys saw me use, notice it shows you the quick key right there. It's Option 0. So if I want to quantize something, notice I have notes selected, Option 0. Now that's the very first window. If you hold Command now and use your up and down arrows, it's going to take you through all the MIDI event operations that you would use. So a really quick and easy way to get all that information up is anytime you need to quantize something, you've got the notes selected, maybe you're in Notes View. We'll even zoom in on this a little bit so you can see these. Cool. Everything's pretty much quantized as I was in grid mode, but Option 0, and you're in quantize, so now it would act based off of the notes that I have currently selected. If I hit quantize right now, it's really not going to do anything because I have it already set for quantizing 16th notes, but you guys understand how quantize works. But all of the different features that you're going to deal with MIDI, if you hold down Command, use your up and down arrow, it'll take you through all of those features. All right, guys, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Any questions for the evening? Oh, good question. How do we take MIDI and record it into audio? I actually did it earlier, but I want to do it again. Why not? I tell you what, let's go grab that guitar piece and let's use that to actually do this with. So we have the original guitar track. Where is that at? Here it is. We have the guitar track that I created, synth guitar. So let's say I want to commit this down as audio. Notice that I showed just the tracks that I want to be dealing with here. So I've got the original audio, which actually we don't need. I'm going to mute that and hide it, because we were only really focused on getting this recorded down as audio. So we've got an instrument track here. So we know the MIDI is actually happening up top here. It shows this MIDI signal. The audio is actually happening on the track itself. So we have to get the audio out of this track. So I'm going to look at the output into a brand new audio track. So let's create that new audio track. I'll make a stereo audio track. And the reason I'm creating a stereo is because the source was stereo. So we'll keep the recorded track stereo. Whatever output we use here, we'll use an available output. You can see bus 21 and 22 are already in use because they're amber. So just use another bus that's not already being used, 23 and 24, and then just match it on the input here. So bus 23 and 24. Cool. I'll record on the track. Let's take a look, and I've already got a selection. I've got a selection of the MIDI itself, so we'll go ahead and record. Now again, remember I changed patches on that piece. In fact, let's go back and let's just try out that wah-wah that I kind of liked. I think it was this one. Listen to it. Yeah, let's go ahead and record this down. So, record it in. Cool. So if you notice the actual signal flow here, we paid attention to, and notice this is really important too. I hid all the tracks except for the tracks I was dealing with. That's always really kind of an important thing to do. Notice if you're trying to do the same feature and you've got all the tracks currently visible, it's a lot for your mind to look at. So what I did was I hid all the tracks except for the tracks that I was dealing with, and that lets you really see kind of a lot easier what it is that we're dealing with here. So I've got the two tracks I was dealing with. We had the audio coming out of the output of the track, the instrument track, into using the same exact bus path into the audio track and simply record it. Good question, Javon. Any other questions? Oh yeah, not a problem, Javon. No sweat. Anytime you guys have questions, that's what I'm here for. Well, guys, if there's no more questions, here we go. Felix, can you record multiple MIDI tracks into one audio track? Yes, I actually could. It's not recommended, and here's why. I could have recorded both the bass and the guitar into the same exact track. However, if I wanted to put effects, like for instance, we'll go ahead and name this right here. We'll call this S guitar because it's the synth guitar. Now, let's say I put an EQ on this, and if this had happened to have both the bass and the guitar mixed in, that EQ is going to apply to both of these pieces. So it's not usually a good idea to record them all into the same track. You usually, Felix, you're usually going to want to have things on their own individual track. That way you can deal with them individually. A good example I like to give is, oh, I see what you're saying. So if I doubled up, I got your question now. So on that double bass part, when I doubled up, yeah, you probably could. However, I usually still like to record them individually, and that way I have individual control over them. Because maybe one of the bass parts, when we get into mixing next week, maybe one of the bass parts I might want to mix hard left, the other one hard right. That would give me more control if I recorded them to their own audio track. But I do see your point. And that's a good point. Cool. Any other questions? A good question, by the way, Felix. George has a question. Is there any way we can download the archive for this class to watch offline? I don't think you can download them. They will be. You'll notice we post these archives up, and they are links that take you back to YouTube. And there is an actual crafty way you could hijack it off of YouTube. There is, if you were to use Firefox, Firefox has, yeah, there's a YouTube downloader. And there's also some other companies like, let's see here. You could do it through Firefox, but let's just Google this real quick. I'm going to go over here. Okay, good example. I'll use Felix's example. Jacksta. We'll try this out. Jacksta. And here's a video downloader. I'm not sure if this is a paid product or not. Hey, Felix, you'd probably be better. It says try it for free right here. I have a feeling, though, usually when you try it for free, it only works for, say, like 10 minutes, and then it'll cut out on you. So let's see. Felix, how much did you pay for this? Okay, cool. So that's the problem. Do you remember how much you paid for the application? Let's see. Try for free. Let's try buy now. I'll just find out. Ooh, $70. Ouch. Well, that's not a very free option. There is a free option if you wanted to use Firefox. Firefox has a video download helper. These are kind of like backdoor avenues into hijacking other people's stuff off of websites. But, I mean, you're using it for educational purposes. You're not trying to download a movie or anything like that. In the past, we actually just had people use the download helper that comes free with Firefox. But you're more than welcome to use any method. Currently, I don't believe YouTube has a download feature embedded into YouTube, but there are these other workarounds that Felix mentioned this one, but I bet you if we put in here, and if anybody else has any other suggestions, Felix says there's one called MacX YouTube downloader that's probably cheaper. Let's try it. Now, being that it has the word X in it, I'm going to put in YouTube downloader. I'm sure you guys would understand why. I'd hate for something to come up on the screen that we aren't supposed to be looking at here. Let's see. Downloader for Mac, CNET, video converter. Max Extra YouTube downloader. Well, this says free download right here, so there's your free option right there. Excellent. It has a rating of 8.2, so this looks like this might be the option. Let's try it. YouTube downloader. Okay, it looks like it's downloading now. There you go. Cool. Well, appreciate you guys chiming in. That was an excellent solution there. MacX looks like it's going to be the way to go. And that'll allow you to hijack. Now, remember, this is not just my videos. You can actually basically hijack anyone's videos off of YouTube. Just be careful with that. As long as you're using it for personal use, I don't think there's going to be an issue. If you were trying to broadcast something to and hold an event where you're selling tickets, you'd probably get in trouble for grabbing stuff. The one on Firefox, let me see here. It's actually an add-on that you have to add on. It's this little guy right here, and I believe I actually have to be on a specific video. So if that's the case, let me do this then. Let me go to YouTube and find a video. You'll see that once it understands there's information, it'll allow you to download. But this was, I think you're also going to have to Google this in order to find this little app. It's a free little app that adds on to Firefox. Let me get a video up real quick. And let's see, we'll try. So here's a particular song I happen to like, Sasha's Hot Chip, and you can see already this symbol is going. So as soon as I start playing this video, I'm going to turn down my audio because it's going to get kind of loud. And of course, we've got an advertisement here. I can skip the ad in a second. Skip the ad. Now, once the video is playing and you see this little emblem going, all I have to do is go to this little triangle right up to the side here. And look at this. It allows you to choose the actual resolution that you want it at as well. 1080p sounds good to me. Then I usually just do this little quick download option. And there you go. It's hijacking the video. I believe it actually saves it in a .flv. Oh, no, it didn't. There you go. MP4 format. So there you go. You're good to go. And that'll be a good answer for you. There. Now you've got free videos. Yes, Rick, this is an add-on. And I believe it's called Video Download Helper. Let me take a look here. Yeah, it's called Download Helper. Yeah. So that one's free, and I think if you just Google Firefox Download Helper, the video does have to be playing, and once you see the little ball swirling around like that, remember, you just click out to the side of it here, the little triangle area, and that'll give you the options for how to download it. I usually pick the highest resolution possible, and then I usually just hit quick download. And then I should do it for you. All right, guys. Any other questions before we end tonight's session? Any questions on some of the things you guys saw tonight that maybe I went a little too fast and you'd like to just get another refresher on something I did? All right, cool, guys. Well, I'll let the song play out, and after the song, if we don't have any other questions, we'll go ahead and end our session for tonight.
All this talk is getting me down. Nothing's making sense in my brain. I'm moving miles across the terrain, trying not to fix the pain. I'm ready for the big pain, only to discover a name. I'm blown with love in the frame. And watch things drop down. And watch things drop down. And watch things drop down. Watch things drop down. All this talk is getting me down. Nothing's making sense in my brain. I'm losing words across the terrain, trying hard to fix it today. Waiting for the big pain, only to discover a way. Left side, work, one day you might realize that you might need to open your eyes. One day you might realize that you might need to open your eyes. Inside, outside, work that board, work that right side, left side, open that board. Inside, outside, left side, work the floor. The top, side, upside, down, with board. Work that inside, outside, work that board, work that right side, left side, open that board. Inside, outside, left side, work the floor.
All right, guys, if there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap for the night. I appreciate you guys coming out, and I look forward to seeing you next week. I hope you guys are getting inspired by watching these tutorials, and I hope to hear your compositions and hear some really incredible work from you guys. Take care. Good evening.